what was about Ron's pitch that finally made you feel like a lot?
Had something to do with it.
Okay.
Yeah, he sort of came looking, you might say. The guy named Jim, who was the other executive producer here, had an option on my books, and we had agreed with Jim because I liked him insofar as it's possible to use the word trust in the same context as the word film people. And it varies, you know. I did trust Jim. He'd read the books 4 times before coming to talk to me, and in the midst of negotiations, he called up to tell me he thought he was channeling Murtaugh.
Wow.
So, he respected the material.
Yeah.
But he wanted to make a feature film, and he tried. He had scripts prepared by people like Randall Wallace and Annie Peacock, very respectable script writers. And what it is you just can't make a 2-hour movie in that book. It totally can't be done and have it resemble the original in any respect. So eventually, Ron was familiar with the material, was interested in it, but Jim kept wanting to make a feature, and finally he gave up, and the time was right.
I just kept checking in with Jim. I had a meeting and he said, well, we want to do a feature, and I said the same. I said, I just don't know what the 2-hour version of this is. And I said, I just think it's a TV show. And he said, well, okay, we're going to try the feature route. For every year, we would literally check back in and say, so how's that feature coming? He said, no, we're getting there. And then one year, a year ago, a year and a half ago, something like that, he says, I think maybe it is a TV show. I said, okay. So then I call him Something Television, where my deal is, and said, we're these books, and just take it out. Pitched it, and Stars snapped it up. So it was like, great.
I think with the success of something like Game of Thrones, you kind of open the door to have that chance of being epic.
Definitely. Consisting fan base, recognizable material, big epic story, multiple books.
I'm so excited for it, by the way. Really. And I read a lot about how much research you do before every book and everything, your academic background and all that. You could speak to that a little bit, into maybe how any of your input kind of went into the show.
Ask me my opinion every once in a while, whether under no legal compulsion to take it. But I'm very impressed and involved with people showing me things and saying, "Oh, I'm thinking of this," and so forth. Usually I just say, "That's great. I think that's a wonderful idea." But there's small practical details. We were discussing flowers in the car this morning, and what specifically the flowers in Outlander were, because at this point I know it wasn't specific in the early books, but I was in a position to tell what they are now. So
that's cool. The attention to detail really makes it like a more complete world.
Absolutely, I'm so impressed at the level of detail that I've seen in the concept art and the early bits.
So we have a historian who reads all the scripts, gives notes, writer's access. There's a herbalist. There's a Gaelic speaker who teaches the cast to speak Gaelic, as opposed to Gaelic. There's Gaelic, and Gaelic is what they speak in Scotland. And so we have classes. The actors go and take classes to learn to speak this language, which we're not going to subtitle. We're going to play as foreign language in the show, because the show is told from Claire's point of view, and she didn't understand it, so the audience won't either. But I wanted the actors to be able to speak it correctly. And we have a dialect coach to give actors the specific dialect of the region and Inverness, and all the department heads from production design to costume, set deck. They spend a lot of time researching the things that really were used at the period, what we know, what we don't know, really getting into all the fine detail work of what is the 18th century. Because my mandate to the show was, I don't want to reinvent the 18th century. This is not our cool, new, hip version of it. Just play it as what it was. It's a bizarre enough world. It's already an alien culture to all of us. We don't have to put a spin on top of it. So the 18th century is really a real place to us. The idea is that the audience should believe Claire's journey. Claire goes to the Stones and ends up in 1743. I want them to believe this really happened to this woman. So it has to have a very strong sense of authenticity.
You mentioned your concept art that you showed last night for the panel. Is that something you've shared with the actors to kind of show them where this world is going, or what have you done with the art?
All the art is in the production offices, and they've all been through there, and they hang around. They've seen a lot of the sets are going. We have we built basically a studio facility outside of Glasgow, and the sets are going up there. And so the cast really knows a lot. They're involved in a lot of this stuff.
Which of the art, Diana, is something that when you saw it, you said, "Oh my gosh, this is exactly what I had in my head"? Which one rang the most true for you?
Well, all of them are are quite close. You know, I can see them very vividly in my head. So nothing is exactly this, but their take on Castelliac is actually very close. Very impressive.
With the time travel use, it's how much of it you felt like you wanted to focus on it, and then also how much of Claire's life in her present day versus when she goes through the stones. What's the balance? What we'll see.
Well, there's not a lot of time travel in the first book.
Right.
She just goes through once.
Right. Through once.
So, but it's a key moment.
Right.
So it really is the catalyst for everything that follows. So that's important. There's not as, she's desperately always trying to get back in year one, because that's a story. And she's trying to figure out how that's possible, where the stones are. But it doesn't play bigger than that in the show. And in terms of her life in the 20th century, like the book, we open in the 20th century in 1945 after the end of World War II and start from there. We follow, her story from the book pretty closely, in most ways until she goes through these towns. So we kind of take our time with it. We kind of, set up the characters. It's really important to set up the relationship between her and Frank, her husband, because she's going to be desperately trying to get back to him for quite some time. And if you don't invest in that relationship as an audience, if you don't understand why Claire wants to get back to him, you'll be impatient, just going, just stick with Jamie. I mean, Jesus, who doesn't want to be with Jamie? So you've got to understand the triangle. So that requires a little time. One of the things I did add into the show that is not really in the book is to sort of do more some flashbacks of Claire and Frank in their life on 20th century. So you see him, so you're reminded emotionally of the connection between the two, of why it's important, what that marriage means to her. So you can get that she's driven constantly to get out of here, that it's not just, hey, this is a cool place to go.
One of the main challenges is building up the concept
it's a different process than creating a series from scratch. Here's a path, and here's a story, which on some levels is easier because hey, I know where I'm going, I know what this is all going to be, so I'm doing it. But adaptation is a specific art form, and it's a different exercise in a writer's room to sit with the writers and start with a story and figure out, okay, this is the tale. Now we're going to cut it up into pieces, and we're going to do it. We're going to take 16 of these. Okay, what are the 16 hours of the story? Where do you make ins and outs? What's the shape? And then you have to give each episode a certain shape as an hour of television. So it kind of requires a beginning, middle, and end, even though it may not have been structured that way in the book. Now you're taking this segment of the book and turning it into its own structure. What's the theme of that episode? Sort of what is Claire doing in this episode that distinguishes it from the next one? It's a different intellectual challenge. It's really fun. I mean, I really enjoy it. It's sort of like exercising a different muscle in your head.
Does the first book just encompass the first season, or do you see it? Yeah. So you can pretty much get a book into. You feel at this point they get bigger and bigger as they go along.
Yeah, there's books down the line.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many episodes it will take.
Yeah.
This one is 16 episodes.
Which is huge for a show.
It's a lot to cram into one season.
The Jamie and Claire relationship is obviously like the key. That's what everybody has to buy into. Can you talk a little bit about your casting process and finding the right Jamie and the right Claire and the right people with each other to have that kind of chemistry? What was that like?
It was hard. I think going into the project, I thought we would find Claire first. I thought, there's probably several English actresses that can play this. I bet we'll find her right away, and I bet Jamie will be the toughest one to cast because he's Jamie is the king. We call in the writers' room. We call him the king of men. It's like, the king of men is hard to cast. Okay, who's the king of men? And of course, Jamie was the first one cast, and it was just one of those things where you saw his tape, and we all just went, "Oh my God, there he is!" Called Diana and said, "Hey, I think we found him."
Yeah, he sent me the links to his audition. She's one of that. I've been thinking, you have to be kidding.
This guy?
Really? Anyway, then I got to where we were going, and I could set up my computer. So I was like this through the audition, and came up, and 5 seconds in, I was thinking, he doesn't look anything like his photos. It was great. And then 5 seconds later, he was just gone, and it was Jamie Fraser right there.
That's awesome.
So then the process of trying to find Claire was now about, okay, now we have Jamie, so who's a good match for Jamie? And it took a long time. It was a hard thing because it's also it is her point of view, it is her story. The show sits on her shoulders in a profound way, so it had to be a very special actress. And again, it was just when we saw Katrina's audition, you were like, oh, that's Claire. There she is. And then we tested it with Sam, and